Okay, John, I'm going to do my best to walk you through this. I've come across an issue in assembling these yokes, and this resulting in this. Now, I have this double yoke all assembled, and you can see that when I spin this, I mean it spins, but there's a tad bit of resistance in that. It should spin, in that it's not packed with grease yet, it should spin a little bit more freely than this. Well, this was the first yoke I assembled, and so I thought, well, let me assemble the next one. And so I put this one completely together, and at this point in time I had some suspicions as to what's causing the problem, and in tightening down the drive cam here, which is the last step, and it pinched it together such where it just seized it right up. And this is what's causing that. I have here all of the internal parts to the yoke. This is basically this as it's assembled, minus the shims, which I don't have represented in here. Fits directly in here, where the bevel gear is right here, and the drive cam here, and all the internal parts as you see it. So I'm going to dissect this thing for you. Okay, so we take off our washer, we take off this guy here, but before we do, I want to show you something here. Now you see this spinning. Now this shouldn't spin by itself, rather this guy should be spinning with this bevel gear, and this is why it's not. So we take this apart even further. I'm going to break this down, take off that guy. Okay, we're getting to the root of the problem here. Now we have the sleeve, which is called the top hat. There's the 51107 bearing, a three-way bearing, and you can see how that is, right? And then you have your seat right here, and it fits directly as it is located in the yoke. It fits right against the outer race of this bearing right here. Okay, the 6006 bearing, and it's retained by the retaining ring in this older style. The newer style, as you know, actually has a snap ring in the middle here, and then it has a much shorter seat, which is an improved design. Now here's the problem that we have, is that this part of the drive cam, and for comparison's sake, here's the old style drive cam to the large Maltese, and it likewise has the same diameter to the small drive cam the small Maltese drive cam, and this is significant. I'm going to point this out in a minute. But this part of the drive cam needs to, well, it flushes out, it fits right up against the inner race of the bearing. Okay, so you can see where it fits right up against the inner race of the bearing, right? And this other side of the same race should flush up against the end of this top hat. Well, the problem is that this top hat is slightly recessed in the ID of this seat. In this case, by 1/8 thou, and it varies on the other two that I measured. And I have not yet taken this one apart, but I suspect that this one likewise is recessed by a much lesser degree. Nevertheless, it is recessed in so much where it's causing some friction. So basically, when you tighten down this drive cam, which in turn tightens against this inner race, which then has to travel 8 thou distance to connect to the end of this. Meanwhile, the outer race is already pressed up against the end of this seat. So basically you're cocking this bearing, when you're tightening down this drive cam, you're cocking this bearing by pushing the inner race in by 8 thou in this case, and that's what was seizing this up. So I did a small chart here, and I can break this down, you know, with you in an email if needs be. But basically, this column right here is representing this assembly here that came off of this single yoke. When I actually have this thing together, as I do right now, and if I was to do it sort of an old-fashioned method, and I've got one hand here, so I'm not going to, you know, do it completely, but you put a straight edge along there, right? And you get your feeler gauge, and then you go in. You can see via the feeler gauge that there is definitely a gap, and you feel it out to where, in this case, it's 8 thou. Well, the numbers here agree with that, where you take the overall length of the assembly, which is the overall length of those components put together, minus the overall length of the sleeve, or the top hat, as we're calling it. Well, there's 8 thou difference. And again, that's what I gapped out, was 8 thou, 8 thousandths. I measured some other components in here, and which makes all of this all of this makes sense when you take all of it into consideration, all of this data. These other two assemblies right here, which are to go on the next yoke and double yoke that go on the left side of the machine. You've got one that has a 3 thou that's recessed in by 3 thou, and the other one that's recessed in by 6 thou. This one might prove to have a similar bind as to what I'm experiencing here, which I'm not liking. This one with a 6 thou disparity, where it's recessed in by 6 thou, will likely seize up completely, like I experienced on this assembly right here. The differences in the top hat length, this is the one that Ivan made, 1.979, and you can see right off that it's 5 thou shorter than the two originals that I feature over here. However, I measure this against the original top hat that came out of this yoke, and it is the same, 1.979, where Ivan just matched it to the original one. So anyway, so that's what we got there. What I'm thinking the best thing to do would be to send you back each one of these assemblies and have you actually trim the bottom portion of these seats, you know, just part this by, in this case, 6 thou. In this one, by 3 thou, you're parting just the bottom of that, so that the two ends, that of the seat and that of the top hat, that they are truly flush with each other. And this one by 8 thou, so each one of these being sort of a custom deal. We can't make this shorter, because then we would have a reverse effect as to what we're experiencing right now, where it's the inner race that is getting pushed in too far, while the outer race is stable. Well, if you have this one flushed up and then you have the seat actually parted up past the level, the end level of the top cam, I'm sorry, the top hat, then we stand a chance of this outer race actually getting pushed too far in the bore, and therefore thereby binding this bearing all the same. So with each one of these assemblies, these need to be exactly the same length with this assembled. The seat and the top hat. So that's item number one. Item number two was that you can see this where it's just a little bit shiny around here. When I had this assembled on the single yoke, this was actually making contact with the snap ring here when the snap ring was assembled. How they remedied that back in the day was that they actually made this diameter small enough where it wouldn't make contact with the tangs on the retaining ring. So this needs to actually be machined down to match this so it doesn't rub on this retaining ring. I tried to Dremel that a little bit and round off the edges here and here a little bit. I don't know if you can see that very well, but anyway, to no avail. It still rubbed all the same, and that was before even the final cinch. And when I tightened that down, like I mentioned before, then it bound up this bearing to the extent where it just simply wouldn't move. So I'm going to send you 4 of these assemblies, each one indicating how much it needs to be trimmed there. Ultimately, and your self-check there when you put it together, and the reason why I'm going to send the assemblies so that you can verify and make sure that these two surfaces are truly flush on the same plane with each other. So I'll send you those two, this one, and then the one that I'm going to take out of there. And then secondly, I need to send you this, and I'm not sure if this one is making contact. That looks like a new assembly too, so I'm going to take that off and take a look at it and see what's going on there. And there's a small small Maltese drive cam assembly that's to go on the other full yoke main shaft assembly that is likewise of a new style here replacing an older cast version like this. So I'm going to check that out, but I do have to send you this one for sure. Anyway, I'm going to send this to you. You can check it out on YouTube, and then we'll chat. So this is gonna need to buy us another week or two, unfortunately, in the assembly process. When you take into account sort of the troubleshooting discovery process here, and then the disassembly, tearing things back apart, and then sending it to you, and then getting them back and so forth. So we're going to have to relay this to Damien and Natural Factors. Tearing this shaft in and out, it just, there's no way to avoid this either, but it just simply scratches and gulls up. And my recommendation would be to replace this shaft, and likewise the two bearings, in that the bearings, they get galled up. You can see the gall marks in there. And then it just raises havoc on the shaft when you press it in and out again and again. Well, in this case, where I was taking it in and out. So I recommend that we replace these two bearings and that shaft. I only pressed this in the one time, so I think that I'll be okay pressing it out and then back in again upon final assembly. Though it's going to be kind of scratched, and those bearings will be a little bit galled as well. It's just a super tight press, John. So So I will send this off to you. Thanks so much.